useless from within itself, not from outside. And as from a fire, tiny sparks fly out in various directions. So from this self, we referred to the self earlier, 2-3 verses we had studied. Studying, waking, dream, and that deep sleep, a profound dimension of consciousness we saw, and all the energies of the body are withdrawn into that consciousness. From that it comes out again. This subject we had studied earlier. And now this verse says from this self, not something far away, not outside the universe, from this self. That's the language used here. Taking the example of a human being, his sense of consciousness, the self, the highest self within. That is the subject today in that shloka. Say from this self, the whole universe has come. That's the language here. All organs, all worlds, all gods, all beings have come from this self. Edasmad atmanaha. Is it? Sarve lokaha, sarve pranaha, sarve devaha, sarvani bhutani, vyucharanti, emanate, come out, vyucharanti. Then the shloka said, Tasya Upanishad, its very mysterious name, a profound, deep name, and that is Satyasya Satyam, the truth of truth, that is the Atman. Then what is the truth then? Pranavai Satyam. All energies in the world, they are all Satyam. And the prana is the truth of which the Atman is the truth of truth. Satyasya Satyam. Pranas have no awareness, no consciousness, nothing. Whatever little you find through the prana as consciousness comes from the Atman only. There is one source of consciousness. There is no second source. And this is the nature of this world. On one side, the pranas operating at the cosmos. Various energies coming out of that one single unit energy, including the sun, the stars, all of them, including our own bodily energy. All these are different forms of one single energy. That energy has come from the Atman. It interpenetrates that energy. This is the study undertaken from this chapter onwards. Search for the ultimate reality. Not going to the stars, beyond some world, the other world as they call it. Nowhere in the Upanishads you will find here. Everything is here, here. Where can you go for searching for God? Somewhere there. It is all here. Now this orientation to thought came so early in history in this blessed country. It has not been repeated elsewhere yet. That is why this has got such a tremendous intellectual, spiritual hold on the people. And today that hold is on modern people as well. Without any instruments, without any kind of preparation, physically speaking, you find profound thoughts coming out, profound inquiries, profound truths about this human being, his physical nature, his higher nature. This world, its physical nature, its higher nature. What a wonderful contribution. And today only we are able to appreciate it still better, because many of these things are being rediscovered by modern scientists. In fact, when we studied the subject of dream and deep sleep, why this dream and deep sleep were made subject of study, the answer comes. Shankaracharya says, in the waking state, the seer and the seen are intermixed. You can't separate them. The experiencer and the object of experiences are mixed up. So we go to the dream. We go to the sleep to find out what is the source of experience. Who is the one that experiences? The body? No. Sensory system? No. Not even the pranas, not the mind. There is pure consciousness hidden behind all this. That is the source of all consciousness in life, in the universe as well as here. That's one single conclusion. Added to a second conclusion. This consciousness cannot be divided. Impartible it is. Consciousness is the only reality which cannot be fragmented. It's absolutely one, no two. That profound utterance, Ekameva Advitiyam. This pure consciousness is one alone and not two. Inconceivable to have a second to consciousness. Now that statement of the Upanishads becomes echoed by scientists like Schrodinger, who said consciousness is a singular, of its plural is inconceivable. Mind is one and no two, three, four. But functional minds are plenty, but not the mind itself, consciousness itself. That's language used today. So all these things have been already announced, and as I said, there is no reference to any God or anything there. No devil, no God, nothing. Only the various natures, powers are there. They have been given some mythological association in the previous development of thought. Upanishad refers to them and tells them these are all merely objective. They belong to the relativist world. They are not absolute. They are not the source of all this knowledge and awareness in the world. We have to search for it. That is the subject that came, and at that stage, this Atman, they discovered hidden behind this body-mind complex, infinite in nature. And out of this Atman, the universe has come. And the Atman, when I refer to the world, the whole, we call it Brahman. When I refer to this here, we call it Atman. Two words only, same reality of the nature of pure consciousness. Since cannot have what you call a partitioning of the Atman. Atman is one, Brahman is one. Avibhaktam, vibhakteshu, vibhaktam, divachastitam, Gita said in the 12th or 13th chapter. 13th chapter. Undivided in things apparently divided. That is the Atman. That is the nature of pure consciousness. That is the nature also of space. Space cannot be divided. The most undivided thing in the world is space. Similarly, this Brahman is in the consciousness dimension, absolutely undivided, ever one and never two. Advitiyam, the language is that. That is the discovery that made the Upanishads so famous. I often refer to it as the Mount Everest of thought. All the heights you go, finally you go to the highest Everest. Beyond that there is no land at all, no hill at all. So also this thought, where unity is discovered, there is no further procedure for thought. Only to apply that knowledge, that is all. Any science will reach the final climax when it discovers one energy out of which all its other energies are derived. That's what science is trying today. We discovered this for the whole universe in the Atman of the nature of infinite pure consciousness. The sages had that scientific mind, questioning, asking this question, that question. Let us see what happens. Mind, the body, the senses, how they function. Is the body the experiencer? Let us test it. They found no. The sense organ experiencer? No. Pranas within experiencer? No. That is how they found. Then come on, I will take you to a further study. Then that king took that sage to that sleeping person, made him wake up, and then explained the situation to that person that this body-mind complex, the pranas were working, but pranas have no awareness. They are not experiencer. The experiencer was asleep, and therefore he did not hear anything. But when he is awake, he will hear. That's quality of consciousness is there, trickling through this body-mind complex. But its true dimension is infinite. This kind of discovery, from a small particle of consciousness, you discover the infinite dimension of consciousness. That is a great discovery, and today's scientists are able to appreciate this wonderful language, this wonderful idiom of Vedanta. Here it said, Tasya Upanishad, its name, Satyasya Satyam. Pranas are all Satyam. The world is going on as the play of prana. Body, the sun, stars, everywhere you will see energy of play. Now beyond this energy, the truth of it is the Atman of the nature of pure consciousness. It is to that dimension the modern scientific thought is moving, and quite fast, I should say. During this century, next century, many more developments will come. That is why there is a literature of truth. Truth alone is eternal. A dogma cannot be eternal. A belief cannot be eternal. But if you speak a truth, it is eternal. There's no change at all. These sages discovered some profound truths about the world, about human nature, human destiny. And they never put a label on it. It's my truth or your truth. Truth is nobody's. There is no kind of person sponsoring a truth. There is no truth at all. That's why we call it apaurushaya, a wonderful word we have invented dealing with Sanatana Dharma teachings. They are called apaurushaya, not deriving sanction from any person, personal authority. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that, the teacher says. What is the meaning of it? He said so. He is the authority. Not the truth, but he is the authority. Whereas in the Upanishad, there is no authority. We don't know who the sages are. Just one small reference, that's all. The truths are there. Wonderful truths. Like any physical science discovering truths in botany or zoology or physics, whatever be the science, they discover the truths and you can study for yourself. It's not because I discovered it is true. No. I discovered it. It was there. Therefore, it is called a truth. What we call in Sanskrit, Shankaracharya's language, Vastu Tantra Jnanam. Jnanam based upon the Vastu, the actual reality that is there. That alone is science. Vastu Tantra Jnanam. The other is Purusha Tantra Jnanam. Knowledge based upon the Purusha, the person, his attitudes, sentiments, opinions, etc. That is very personal. This is impersonal. Therefore, apaurushaya. And because it is impersonal, therefore it is universal. No personal truth can be universal. We can take it for granted. No truth uttered by a single person, as I say unto you, can never be universal. But this is impersonal, therefore universal. Apaurushaya is a word used without a Purusha behind. Personality is not behind. Truth is there. Therefore you can check up. You can verify for yourself. All scientific truths belong to this category. One or two places in this Upanishad, Shankara's commentary says, nature of truth is to be discovered through adducing evidence. Proper evidence must be given. Then you know it is truth. So it is established. It's not mere utterance, not mere words. I am quoting one sentence in the first section of the book, and a little bit comes also in this present section. One sentence I am quoting. See the wonderful scientific precision of this great mind. And simplest Sanskrit language he uses there. Nahi vastu anvakyanam kriya anvakyanam va pramanya apramanya karanam. Says vakyasya, any statement found in the Upanishads, what is the nature of the truth of the statement? That is what we have to ask. Vakyasya vastu anvakyanam. Does it speak about somebody or something or some action? That is not a question. Does it convey what you call certain clear knowledge to you? Then that statement is true. Otherwise it is not. Nahi vakyasya vastu anvakyanam kriya anvakyanam pramanya apramanya karanam. Karanam pramana or apramana. Then kim tarhi, what else is the pramana then? Nishchita phalavat vijnana utpadagatvam. That statement must rouse in your mind certain real knowledge. Certain knowledge. Certain means absolutely satisfactory knowledge. If that statement produces that knowledge in you, then that statement is true. Otherwise, it is not at all true. It is apramanam. Tat yadasti, tat pramanam vakyam. Yat nasti, tad apramanam. Now, this kind of approach, something unique in the world of philosophy and spiritual life. But in the Upanishads, it is full. Everybody is asking, did you discover the truth for yourself? I say this, but did you discover? Did you check up? This question you will find plenty at that time. And such an early period of human history. So, pranavai satyam, tesham esha satyam. Now, on this particular verse, there is a beautiful commentary by Shankaracharya. Wherever the subject of the unity of truth, unity of the Atman, unity of consciousness is expounded, there are difficulties to understand that subject. Especially logic. Logic will not be able to understand this perception of unity because logic depends upon differences. Without differences, there is no logic. Without relationship, there is no logic. That is why logic functions in the world of relations. But there is only one. There is relation there. The non-relational unity is not comprehensible by a logical mind. The mind has to go beyond its own limitation. So this is a subject that comes again and again. Today in scientific thought also it comes here. Vedanta, it was there in the very beginning. In the Kathopanishad, we heard Yama telling Nachiketa, Naisha Tarkeda Matirapaneya. This mind, which understands the truth of unity of the Atman, cannot be created by tarka, by logic, by argument, by any such thing. Logic chopping is the word used in one of the books here. Don't be interested in logic chopping. It's an endless process it is. Doesn't take you anywhere. Such questions we find there. Logic has a place. We give it a good place, but not the highest. You have to go beyond. One of my lectures in the message of the Upanishads, there is a lecture 17 also, deals with this subject, because this particular verse of Katha Upanishad came, says, Naisha Tarkena Matirapaneya. This mati, this buddhi, cannot be created by resort to tarka. This mati is something different. To perceive the truth of the Atman, tarka will not help you there. In that connection, I spent a whole lecture to deal with this subject. What is the limitation of logical method? How to make that limitation overcome, to develop a higher attitude, to realize the truth. That is the subject that is discussed there. Tarka apratishthanat, says Brahma Sutra Vyasa. Tarka is apratisthana, doesn't lead to conclusive results. Inconclusive is tarka. Therefore, we have to go beyond tarka. Wherever unity comes, tarka has to go. We have to dispense with it. When we deal with the Atman, beyond the mind, beyond thought, the seer of all thought, the thinker of all thought, how can tarka apply there? Tarka needs to bring it into relation, correlation with something else. That can never happen because the Atman can never come under any relation at all. It goes beyond all relation. So just like putting it this way, when we relate ourselves together, I am observing you, I am doing all this, and I am there, all of you are separate, I can make relations. But if I am alone there, where is relation? Absolutely no relation at all. So in this case, the Atman becomes the witness of all relations. You make any relation, Atman is not caught there. He is the witness of the relation. He watches the relation. He is the seer, never the seen, never the object. That's the truth of the Atman. Pure consciousness means that. Now, these are all very profound discoveries in the world of philosophy and religion, and these people have discussed it with such thoroughness, and today we are coming to the same. We are coming to a world of experience in physics which is beyond logical reasoning. That's why Heisenberg wrote, when he discovered this principle of indeterminacy, determinacy is logical. Indeterminacy is thoroughly illogical. There's no place for logic at all in the principle of indeterminacy. Newton's mechanics, thoroughly legitimate, deterministic. You can predict what will happen. But in this 20th century physics, Newton's predictability is destroyed, unpredictability comes in, and immediately logic also goes away. This is how he placed it. It's not a simple change. A revolutionary change took place in the 20th century physics. So here, when you deal with the Atman, you are saying the same thing, that this world of relative experience, the world of objects, in which comes all these energies, everything, there you can study, you can discuss, put logical questions, formulations. Even then, sometimes you have to say, with a little pinch of salt, you take what I tell you. You have to say that. Because the world is really a mystery. We have not cleared the mystery. But when you turn your attention to the subject, the experiencer, the observer of the self, probably becomes infinitely complicated. This subject of logic has no place there. Logic itself belongs to different levels. The most ordinary logic is what we call deductive logic. Deduce from a proposition another proposition. That's what we do. That is totally logic, our own logic. This is called deductive logic, ordinary. Then you can have a higher logic, inductive logic, trying to find new facts. Then from those facts, deduce other things. So deduction, induction, these are the ways in which logic grows, logic expands. Logic is never stationary. That's why when psychology was discovered by Freud, he had to apply another type of logic, a logic which can apply to mental phenomena. So this kind of expansion of logic takes place along with expansion of areas of facts to be studied. The wider the facts, the more wide becomes the logic that applies to it. So logic is growing. Reason is growing as applied to logic throughout the Western world today. We discovered it ages ago. That certain stage came, the only logic is logic of experience. I am realizing that truth. There is no logic about it. That is the truth. That is the truth. No words can reach there. A few verses later, we shall see in the text, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The Taittiriya Upanishad statement comes here that you go beyond speech and thought when you come to experience. Experience is beyond speech and thought. The Atman is beyond speech and thought. So that's the stage at which real spiritual experience comes to a person. It can be later on interpreted with the help of logic, but with a pinch of salt, the teacher will say, don't swallow it fully. Cannot be fully explained in terms of logic, but it's experience. I am so and so. It's an experience. I can't make myself a subject of logical disquisition about myself. I am so and so. That you can show. So this is called mediate knowledge. That's called immediate knowledge. Logic is mediate. This is immediate. All experience, spiritual, is immediate. It will come immediately later on. A student goes to a teacher, tired of this logic, tired of intellect. Finally, goes to a teacher. You will get it here later on. Sir, teach me about that Atman. That is immediate and directly given in experience, which is the self of all. Tell me that Atman. Ya Atma. Say that who is immediate and direct, which is the self of all. Sarvantaratma. I want that to be taught to me. Yes, I shall tell you that whatever words can do, he says, and words fail. And towards the end of this section, we are coming to that. Words fail. So how do you teach about the ultimate truth? Only teaching is neti neti, not this, not this, not this. There's the last sloka that's coming in 2-3 slokas later. Neti neti iti atma. The Atman is not this, not this, not this. Anything when you say yes or is, that means you are affirming. You make a concept. It's not the Atman. You get a concept of Atman. A mental image you get, that's all. Where is the Atman then? It's only a mental image. And so, Stavakra Gita contains a wonderful verse. Achintyam chintyamano vai chintarupam bhajatyasau. When you think of the unthinkable, you betake yourself only to a form of thought. Just a thought you get, that's all. The unthinkable has not come into your net. You cannot get it in any net, any thought net. It is beyond all this thought net. The unthinkable is not to be thought about. Then you will get only a piece of thought. The unthinkable has escaped from the net. There's language used in that great Vedantic treatise, Ashtavakra Gita. So here, this discussion takes place, and Shankaracharya's discussion is masterly on this Upanishad. He himself said in other Upanishads, well, we shall deal with this in the Brihadaranyaka. In that, you will get this subject there. That kind of reference to Brihadaranyaka comes sometimes in his other literature. So here, he is in his own element, a profound truth about this logical world, relativity world, infinite pure consciousness, one and non-dual. Upanishad speaks about it. How to put it across to people? How will they understand it with maximum precision and minimum language? That's what he's trying to do. But in so doing, he has also to receive objections from various types of people, including the logicians. The logicians are always there to criticize all this. Even in Western countries, you will find the logical mind criticizes all the, what you call, different discoveries of modern physics, which are bizarre, not at all in a normal way. They criticize. The logical mind is very particular about it. Even Einstein criticized this principle of indeterminacy by saying, God doesn't play dice. I don't believe so. He said, how can there be indeterminacy? There must be determinacy. He could not accept it up to the end of his life. This concept of though himself is a great soul, great discoverer, relativity itself is a big thing. But this particular thing, he could not appreciate. So this kind of difficulty arises. So Shankara takes up this subject, one after the other. And the fine discussion is going on here. I will just give you a taste of it. Too much of it is not possible because it will be not interesting also. But it is good to know how this subject has been discussed in India from Shankara's time, even earlier also, and up to modern times. And now science has taken over several of these aspects of the subject. The concept of cause, effect, space, time, nature of truth. All these are subjects today central to modern science. And they are subjects central to the Upanishads as well. That's why they are surprised. Men like Eddington, what? Did your country deal with this subject ages ago? We are just dealing with them today here. He spoke once to one of our professors from India. It was years ago. So here, what is the difference? He says, this question is being asked here. The truth of truth. Satyasya satyam. Here is the nature of that truth. I'm just selecting just a small passage only. Yes. One. When you say a spark, then it is a part of the whole. So the whole has parts. Shankara says no. See the language. It is not, an example is not given as between part and whole. Though part and whole, reality is the same. Fire is fire, whether it's a small fire or a big fire. The fireness is what is being illustrated by the example, say Shankaracharya here. The passages are meant to convey the idea of oneness. The spider and the web, oneness. Fire and the spark, oneness. It's not a discussion of size, etc. in this context. We notice in life that sparks of fire may be considered identical with fire. Similarly, a part may be considered identical with a whole. Such being the case, words signifying a modification or part of the Supreme Self as applied to the individual self are meant to convey his identity with this individual self and the Supreme Self. These words are used. The intention is to show the oneness of both. Same consciousness there and here. This is small related to a particular configuration. That is big related to no configuration. There is no difference between the two. One and the same reality appears as small as well as big. Small and big have no meaning in that realm. Only in spatial realm we have difference between small and big. That is language. Like today's electron will be discussed exactly in this language in physics today. Thus, so appears also in the introduction and the conclusion. In all the Upanishads, first, identity is broached. That is the proposition. We are essentially one. Then, by means of illustrations and reasons, the universe is shown to be a modification or part or the like of the Supreme Self. And the conclusion again brings out the identity. Here, for instance, the text begins, the self is all this. All this is self. Then through arguments and examples, this kind of idea is emphasized once again, that what you see differences here, the same self viewed in different contexts, that's all. Same sun finding itself manifested in different ways within the earth itself. So, therefore, from the introduction and conclusion, it is clear that passages setting forth the origin, continuity, and dissolution of the universe are for strengthening the idea of the identity of the individual self with the Supreme Self. That is the intention of all this cosmic evolutionary theories, that this world is one with the Supreme Brahman, from which it has come, in which it lives, unto which it returns. By name and form, we have all the differences here, but in substance it is the same, like gold and the ornaments out of which you make ornaments out of gold. Gold is the ornament. That's the truth of the ornament. Gold plus name and form is the ornament. That stress is what is done here. Now, regarding this, so far as human being is concerned, we are essentially the Atman. We are that infinite Brahman, that is our true nature. We are not this tiny little jiva, a spark as we put it. We use the word spark only to indicate that fire there, that fire here. not to say that it is petty or small. Therefore, this idea is very difficult to come to our mind to understand it properly. Shankara therefore quotes a story by Vedantic teachers. In Shankara's time, the story was correct. So it must be much earlier. So he's quoting it here. Very remarkable story, like the story Vivekananda used to relate in Chicago Parliament of Religions address. A certain prince was discarded by the parents as soon as he was born and brought up in a fowler's home. Not knowing his princely descent, he thought himself to be a fowler and pursued fowler's duties, catching birds, etc., fowler's duties, and not those of a king, as he would if you knew his real nature. When, however, a very compassionate man who knew the prince's fitness for attaining a kingdom told him who he was, that he was not a fowler, but the son of such and such a king, and had by some chance come to live in a fowler's home, he thus informed gave up the notion and the duties of a fowler, and knowing that he was a king, took to the ways of his ancestors. Similarly, this individual self, every one of us here, this individual self, which is of the same category as the Supreme Self, being separated from it like a spark of fire and so on, has penetrated this wilderness of the body, organs, etc., although really transcended. It takes on the attributes of the latter. Having got into the body, we take the attributes of the body of good, bad, indifferent, suffering, all these things that body has, we take it on ourselves. Yes. We feel happy, miserable, etc., but it does not know that it is the Supreme Self. But when the teacher enlightens it that it is not the body, but transcendent Supreme Brahman, then it gives up the pursuit of three kinds of desire. The various worldly desires are known as threefold. Desire for wealth, desire for higher worlds, desire for children. All these are three desires they are mentioned here. And is convinced that it is Brahman. When it is told it has been separated from the Supreme Brahman like a spark, it is firmly convinced that it is Brahman, as the prince was of his royal birth. Only a little hint was given that he could understand, I am the royal prince. Similarly, humanity. We are essentially that. Swamiji gave the story of the lion cub born to a lioness when it was chasing a sheep fold. And the lioness was brought up by the sheep. It ate grass, bleated, always thought it was a sheep. One day another lion came and found a lion among the sheep. He caught hold of it. You are not a sheep, you are a lion. Look at me. No, I am a sheep. Started bleating. What to tell this fellow? How to teach him now? Took him to the water. Look at your face. Mine and yours, we are both lions. Even that was not satisfactory. Then he took a piece of meat and thrust it into the mouth. That grass-eating lion immediately tasted blood. His whole samskara rose up. Said, now I am a lion. Started roaring. No more bleating. No more sheep-like behavior. Now that is the story of man according to Vedantic teaching. We are truly the infinite, caught up in the coil of a sect, of a creed, of a nation, of a race, of the body-mind complex. Forget our true nature. Slowly, we realize we are not this tiny little thing. We have something special, something wonderful. We are one with the ultimate reality. This knowledge comes to people. That is all of spiritual growth and realization. To help it, we may have any number of rituals and ceremonies and religions, everything. But the central principle is we are children of the divine. We have forgotten our true nature. We have to discover that truth for ourselves. That is the central teaching that Vedanta gives all through. So, we know that a spark is one with the fire. Before it separated, it was one. Therefore, the examples of gold, iron, and sparks of fire are only meant to strengthen one's idea of the oneness of the individual self and Brahman. We are one with the one. Even Ramanuja's philosophy of Sri Vishishtadvaita, the concept is still there. Amsha Amshi, a part and a whole. Brahman is the whole, we are a part. But our nature is the same. Divinity is part of both. No system in India ever speaks of the human soul except as divine. Nobody speaks of it as devilish. Nowhere in the Indian tradition. The same spark is in you, in all, according to all the systems. Advaita will go one step and say, I am one with Brahman. Others will say, I am a spark of Brahman, I am a part of Brahman, Amsha, Amshi Bhava, as they call it. These are Bhakti and Jnana attitudes. But no system speaks the human soul as something like a sinner, as something like a devilish, not at all. Spark of divinity is our eternal heritage. How to cultivate it is the whole subject of spiritual life. Yes. Self has been ascertained to be homogeneous and unbroken consciousness. That's the nature of the self. Like a lump of salt. The example is given in the Upanishad. A lump of salt. Everywhere salt, salt, salt. Entirely saltish, like that. Or there is a statement, it should be realized in one form only. Ekasaiva drushtavyam. It's only one. There is nothing what you call separate in it. Homogeneous. One lump of salt, just like that, it says. So they wanted to teach that Brahman has diverse attributes, such as the origin, etc., of the universe. Then, like a painted canvas, a tree, an ocean, for instance, it do not conclude the statements to be homogeneous. If this world has come from Brahman, it is Brahman. There is no second thing. We have separated this, and therefore we manage to live in this world. But the truth is that this world is one with Brahman. Brahmaivedam. All this is Brahman. The language will come again and again. The whole of solar system is only solar radiation. That's the truth about it. Though we see differences here. There is soft and hard. Everything is there. Within this body, the softest material is there. The hardest material also is there. All come from solar radiation. This is what we understand regarding the world of solar system. So the universe belongs to the same category. One infinite Brahman of the nature of pure consciousness. It explains everything in this world. Everything is its own configuration. A rock, or water, or air, or atomic energy. Every one of it is only a form of the same Brahman, ultimate reality. So this idea is put in here in such beautiful commentary, discussing also counter-arguments, objections, all that comes in discussion. Somebody will say, no, it's not satisfactory. Then he explains it still further, still further. In that way it goes on. Masterly commentary of Shankaracharya, 12th century, 8th century AD, when this tremendous fluorescence of intellect and spirituality arose at that time. So here is beautiful discussion. A few more passages are there, which I shall deal with later on. This is a very serious subject. After this, when we take the text, same subject comes up. Now, this is Brahman from which the whole universe has come. Let us study the nature of the universe, the play of prana, the entire relativity world. That is studies here. Study the human body. In this body, there are wonderful things are there. Then behind this body is the infinite Atman. There comes the final statement. Neti, neti. That you cannot say, as we say with regard to these things. These things you can point out, demonstrate, logically establish, etc. The relativity word. But when you turn to the other, these words will fail. There we have to use only one word. Neti, 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 neti. That subject will come within about 2-3 verses more. That we shall take up next time when we meet here. This is as best as possible. I am trying to present. These are all very profound thoughts, and presentation also very profound. But without Shankara's commentary, you can't make head or tail. In fact, if I read one verse, you will not make head or tail of it. Because without a commentator, what these words meant, we do not know. The Kathopanishad, second chapter, last verse, there is a verse there. Says, Yasya brahmacha kshatrancha upe bhavata bodhanaha mrityuryasya upasejanam ka ittha veda yatrasaha. Now, if you recite it and give a translation, you can't make head or tail of it. He says, where the Brahmana and Kshatriya are only food and death is only a pickle, who can understand the truth of that? That's the language. Now, what do we understand by that? Absolutely nothing. But it means profound. They're all symbolic words. A lot of symbols are there. Like today's algebraic symbols are there. E equals mc squared. What do you understand? Those who know algebra, they understand. E equals mc squared. So here also they use these various symbols, and Shankara explains the nature of those symbols there. Kshatriya, political power. Brahmana, sacerdotal, church power. This man who realizes the Atman will not care at all for any of these powers. Nobody can humble him. He is so supreme. And death, which humbles everybody, it is only a pickle. It doesn't add up to food at all. These are food, but death is only a pickle. I say, Ashanaya api, insufficient. Insufficient even for food is a pickle, and that's called death. So these powers and death do not threaten a man who realizes the Atma. That's a shloka. How beautiful idea. But the language is very, very difficult. That will come next time when we meet here. One or two verses we'll find very interesting. This brain is discussed in one verse. The whole brain and physical system. Earlier I said last week that our people had the idea that the heart is the center of thought. I said that one mistake I said, but now I find no, they understood that thought is here within the cerebral system. We shall take it for the next verse when we study it there. They understood heart is the center of feeling, of emotion, but brain is the center of knowledge. That's the language used here in the next verse. But at the same time, brain also is the center of feeling. Lower brain, the whole brain, center of emotional life, feeling life, etc. This is cerebral system, thinking. These are the two divisions of the human brain which we study today in our neurology. So we have that idea in the Upanishad that brain also is the center dealing with subject of thought, subject of understanding, and succession of knowledge, etc. We shall deal with it next week when we meet here on Sunday. Last Sunday, we were specially studying the subject of the limitations of logic. For 2 Sundays, I had occasion to refer to this, and in Shankara's commentary, he expounds this idea. Logic can deal only with a world of duality, but the unity of Brahman is not a subject for logical inference. That was the main contention, and in that connection, Shankara has advanced various arguments. Sometimes the logicians are very, very, what you call, strong-willed. They won't yield. Then sometimes a little angry also. The discussion you will find a little bit of fireworks also in the midst of that discussion. But very simple. Only language, only a little bit hot. That's all. I just wanted to share with you a bit of that language in Sanskrit. Whenever scholars meet together to discuss philosophical subjects, they do discuss very calmly. Occasionally, when there is adamant attitude, there will be a reaction. A little anger will come in the language, not in the emotional expression. The language becomes a little more hard. That you can see in this particular case, because this is a very important point, that logic needs a certain indicator to bring out an inference. In the Atman, there is no indicator. So he is going to tell that the logicians can discover diversity in the Atman if they can discover diversity in space. Is there diversity in space? Not at all. Similarly, in the Atman, there is no diversity. And this simple truth they don't understand, in spite of repeated telling. At that point, Shankara expresses a wonderful idea, which is often quoted by scholars dealing with this subject. We are dealing with high philosophical matters. That is why Vedanta itself is simple, pure experience. But to communicate to people, you have to expound it through various arguments, discussions, lot of reasons, all these are needed. That's why it could withstand the assault of atheism, agnosticism, and nihilism, various isms. Vedanta could withstand and continue to be the dominating philosophy in India, with it withstanding modern scientific challenge. How many religions are going down to that scientific challenge? Not Vedanta. It can stand and withstand modern scientific challenge as well. That is why the intellectual content of this Vedantic message is tremendous. You and I do not need all this intellectual content, but it is there to protect your spiritual life. In spite of all this, actual spiritual life is very simple. To realize the God hidden within me, hidden within all, we just try to realize it. It's a simple matter. But if somebody questions you, is it worthwhile doing it?